scenario planning, anticipatory response, design science. All of these are situations where we take a little bit of data and we just fill in the gaps with these mythic structures. And if you map out those mythic structures in the areas where we have stories about reality, which are not based on very much data, they're based on press, media, older stories, previous generations' experience, the kind of boiling down of things that happened over and over again into patterns, all of that stuff constitutes the vast majority of what happens in our society when we're confronted with a new situation. Everybody runs for their myths, because the thing that makes a new situation new is that you don't really know which way it's going to go. In my own life, I've watched 3 generations of the crypto revolution, where computer scientists suddenly got a new round of tools to play with in cryptography, and in every one of those rounds, the myth that they tell is libertarian anarchism will take over the world, and everybody will be freed from the shackles of the state. And every single time, what happens is that those cryptographers rapidly turn into bankers. And then at that point, they might as well be the state, because they've picked up all of the trammels of capitalism in the process, because it just turns out that money has its own logic, and you start with a bunch of anarchist rebels who have no money, who suddenly have some money, and pretty soon what you discover is that, 4 legs are good, but 2 legs are better. And we've seen that cycle time after time after time. Orwell's Animal Farm turns out to be enormously predictive of revolution, because it turns out that running things turns you into the kind of person that runs things. Right? Or the kind of people that run things happen to be latent with nothing to run inside of your anarchist population, and as the anarchists get a chance to run some stuff, pretty soon the anarchists that are most like that wind up the ones in charge. Because being in charge of anarchy is always a falling. So these kind of patterns, does everybody see how this stuff is kind of unavoidable, right? It's baked into the structure of time that you will have to make decisions before you have all available data. As a result, you have to make assumptions, and the way that we store and catalog those assumptions is in cultural stories about the future, which are the fabric of our mythic reality. Now, there are 2 ways that things cross from this mythic fabric into the actuality of life. One of them is, like with the pandemic flu, people just keep getting flu, right? And governments either keep them away from each other and make adaptation or don't. Individuals either make adaptation or don't. But one way or the other, what settles the situation of what is happening with the flu is a bunch more people get flu, and then eventually the thing peters out, and you see how many people died. And that's pretty much the entire cycle. But this is not the only situation, because that's a situation where the thing goes from being a myth to being a reality, generally speaking, without human intervention. Events take their course. Some governments will keep people safer and keep them away from each other because they mythically assume bad. Other governments will largely ignore it because they mythically assume good. But in both cases, history will make up its own mind.